Shakespeare monologues can be hard to understand. It's almost like speaking a new language. But once you have the keys to unlock the language, Shakespearean English sounds just as familiar as the English we speak today. Want to see how it works? ISC actress Leila is going to perform a monologue for us. Then she's going to break it down bit by bit to help us understand what it means. Then you'll see her perform it again with the monologue's meaning unlocked. Over to you, Leila.
Could great men thunder as Jove himself does, Jove would ne'er be quiet. For every pelting petty officer would use his heaven for thunder. Nothing but thunder. Merciful heaven, thou rather with thy sharp and sulphurous bolt splittest the unwedgeable and gnarled oak than the soft myrtle. But man, proud man, dressed in a little brief authority, most ignorant of what he's most assured, his glassy essence, like an angry ape, plays such fantastic tricks before high heaven as make the angels weep. Who with our spleens would all themselves laugh mortal. So this is one of Isabella's monologues from Act 2, Scene 2 of Measure for Measure. And so prior to this point in the play, to give a little bit of context, the Duke of Vienna gave his deputy, Angelo, the power to rule his lands in his absence. So Angelo, with this newfound power, reinstated a law criminalizing fornication. Isabella's brother, Claudio, is the first to be sentenced to death for violating this law. And so in this scene, Isabella confronts Angelo. She's pleading for her brother's life. In this monologue specifically, she's trying to convince Angelo that it is absurd for men to play God. Within the broader context of the play, this scene, and this monologue included, is sort of the start of Isabella's realization of how men, given even a taste of power, begin to abuse it. But to better understand this monologue, I think it's easiest if we kind of break it down into 3 sections and go bit by bit. And so the first section that I have designated here are the first few lines. Could great men thunder as Jove himself does, Jove would ne'er be quiet. For every pelting petty officer would use his heaven for thunder, nothing but thunder. And so there is a bit of mythological context embedded in these first few lines. Jove, who in Roman mythology is also known as Jupiter, is the king of the gods who has the power to wield thunderbolts. And so what she's saying here is essentially if men had the power of Jove, they would use it and they would abuse it. And we get that context within as there would be nothing but thunder, or nothing but grand displays of power. And after that, she begins this comparison to merciful heaven, thou rather with thy sharp and sulphurous bolt splittest the unwedgeable and gnarled oak than the soft myrtle. And so what she's saying here is, in this comparison, she's saying merciful heaven is more selective in who it prosecutes, choosing the unwedgeable and gnarled oak as opposed to the soft myrtle. And the choice of trees is potentially significant here. The myrtle was thought to be related to Venus, the Roman goddess of love, and so is thus thought as this to be a symbol of love, and perhaps a stand-in for Isabella's brother and for the love that she feels for him. She continues this comparison within the next few lines, as she says, but man, proud man, dressed in a little brief authority, most ignorant of what he's most assured, his glassy essence like an angry ape plays such fantastic tricks before high heaven as make the angels weep, who with our spleens would all themselves laugh mortal. And so what she's saying here is she's saying, but man, in comparison to merciful heaven, given a small fleeting taste of power, most ignorant of what he's most assured, his essence or his soul brittle, acting as absurd as an ape when he plays God, acts so foolishly drunk on his power that he makes the angels die from laughter. The spleen was thought to be the seat of laughter, and thus those last two lines, who with our spleens would all themselves laugh mortal, the angels are going to die from laughing. And so what drew me to this monologue is not only its sadly incredible relevance, but also the way in which the construction of the language reinforces Isabella's emotions. We can hear her disdain for the pelting petty officers, the lowest and most contemptible men in power. This shines through in the aspirated P's and T's in pelting and petty. You get those harsh sounds, which speak to her disdain. We can similarly hear her contempt for men drunk on power in the lines, his glassy essence like an angry ape. You get the ah and the eh. You get those open vowels that are kind of ugly. And you also get this almost like a hiss-like sound of the repeated S's in those lines. You almost have to sneer in order to simply get those words out. And in Angry Ape, we similarly get this very harsh glottal stop of the A that kind of underscores the absurdity of the men themselves. It's almost absurd to have to stop the airflow to create this glottal of Angry Ape and to do it twice in a row. So you get the absurdity of the language and, the absurdity that she is referencing.